Hey guys, and welcome back to my review of Man of Worth, the 13th and final episode of Outlander Season 4. So as per the usual, and for the most of it, I think this episode was a really good episode. Got a couple of takes on it though, as opposed to the usual events from the book that were missing out of the series, that if were included on the finale, I would have probably given it a solid 10 out of 10. Now, if you have been following my videos for a while now, you would know that I'm not the kind of person who complains when something from the novel is missing on the series. I just never do that. But these two events in particular, and in my opinion, were very critical to the story, very important to make the story kind of more realistic and better. But there's a lot to talk about over here and when it comes to this episode, so not going to waste much time over here, and I'm just gonna jump right into it. And number 1. So the episode starts with the Frasers arriving at the camp where Roger has been taken. Now once again in the novel, this happens way earlier, like it overlaps with events from last week's episode, but the level of detail on this episode when it comes to doing things by the book is quite great. Even though not exactly in line with the novel, it is still close enough. But moving on to number 2, the stone of otter tooth worn by Claire around her neck that alerts the Mohawks. Now even though the natives moments before that were willing to trade Roger for all the goodies that the Frasers brought along with them, at that point they're no longer willing to do so. But on one hand we get a complication, and on the other hand we get a much needed reveal. We get to know who the owner of the stone is, the man they spoke of, Ottertooth. Now it is obvious that Ottertooth in the books is yet another time traveler who tried so hard to change history just like Claire did, just like Galus did, and seemingly failed. And no, this is not spoiling considering the description that we were given of Ottertooth, the man who came speaking of war, warning of the future, how they must kill the white man before he kills them, before it was too late. But in the books though, Ottertooth, the very man we see at the very beginning of the episode, like at the end of the credits, is Robert Springer. And Robert Springer did not really travel through time alone, but rather with 4 others under the direction of a man named Raymond. Now their objective there was to have the natives ally themselves with the British, but Ottertooth though had a different plan, decided to go a different way. He decided it was a better idea to warn the tribes of ever joining the British, and hence the part of the story that was relayed on this episode, kill the white man before he kills you. But everything though that was relayed on this episode about his death, his voice following the men, the natives, having to take his head away, bury it way far away, it all felt like I was reading the book every step of the way, exact description, right out of the novel. But number 3 though, I remember when watching the first couple of seasons of the series, I used to think, okay, do they really have to make all men act stupid like most of the time, and some of them occasionally? You know, the way it felt it was the case with Jamie at times, in order to empower women. This kind of trope felt really intensive at first, because most other series out there were doing the same thing, but with time you start realizing that this is not really the case with Outlander. Claire is kind of different. She possesses this knowledge in this day and age that she lives in, a different day and age, a historical day and age from her perspective that no one else possesses. So on the finale of Season 4, this kind of knowledge is exactly what she uses to defuse an otherwise volatile situation. The lines for her in that context as well were amazing on this episode. I believe that ghosts only exist when there's something to be remembered, a story worth telling, or a message worth relaying. But as I mentioned, once again, Claire's kindness, her understanding of the place, the history to her, or the future to these people, the way she diffuses the situation based on all that knowledge, it was all great, all very well handled, and all very well done, and most importantly, all very well written. But moving on to number 4, the character of Murtaugh is continuously proving to be used by the series to be this wildcard, and don't get me wrong, he's an amazing wildcard at that. So there was Herman Husband over the past few episodes, and that was basically represented by Murtaugh. I'm talking the concept, not the methodologies, the arc and spirit, because I know a lot of people are going to talk to me about one being a Quaker and the other one being violent. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the concept, the arc. But looking past the past few episodes, the finale of the season seems to have been trying to use Murtaugh as a replacement for another character out of the novels that has been introduced in the novels by now, but not on the series, and that character is a love interest for Jocasta. But nonetheless, I'm not going to mention a name over here, not going to talk details in order not to spoil, and just in case the series finds a way and decides to introduce him over the course of the upcoming season. But moving on to number 5, Brianna making her peace with what happened to her, some peace as she refers to it, after having visited Bonnet in his cell on last week's episode. Now it does all make perfect sense, at least now that she believes he's dead, and considering she came face to face with him, her abuser, only this time around she had the upper hand and was in a position of power. In the novel though, we all know he escaped, she knows he escaped, which I believe is the case on the series as well, considering last we saw him he was trying to grab the keys to his chains. I also don't believe the series is planning to deviate on this one by a lot from the novels because there's still a lot of story to tell when it comes to Brianna, Jamie, Roger, and Stephen Bonnet. Number 6. The Roger Rescue. It has been done differently on the series than on the novels, but I'm not really objecting over here because it was kinda similar, but not exactly the same. There were some key differences. In the books, the conversation about the stone, the origin of the stone, does not really happen in the presence of either Jamie or Ian. In the books as well, Jamie would end up being captured, end up being thrown in that hut, and end up meeting Roger without Claire at first. Now the major difference over here though is that there wouldn't be any need for that conversation that they had on the way back because Roger would be quick as soon as he sees Jamie to realizing that his presence meant that he was sent by Brianna. Number 7. My memory might be playing tricks on me here, but I don't remember Jamie ever offering himself in exchange for Roger in the novels. I mean, I could expect it happening because, yeah, that's what Jamie would do, but again, I just don't remember it. But I definitely remember though that Ian would make the offer and would stay with the tribe, a moment I was actually waiting for. Now this scene was amazing, the goodbye between Ian and Jamie, the tears flying all over the place, that was really good, a very emotional scene. But it just did a lot more than that. It started explaining why Ian has been portrayed as this idiot throughout the season. Like one of my favorite commenters actually stated, he's been portrayed in this cartoonish fashion. I think it was twofold. Like for one thing, they wanted to add a touch of comedy with Ian, and for another thing, they wanted to throw the audience off. Like we would be watching thinking, okay, Ian is never gonna step up, never going to fulfill his destiny by the end of the season. But all of that talk about Ian though does bring us to number 8, the title of the episode, Man of Worth. It was all about Ian. I mean, I just kept waiting for this moment on the episode, you know, Ian giving himself up in place of Roger, but I never expected that the title of the episode would be in reference to Ian. Young Ian did indeed become a man of worth, the man his uncle wanted him to be, and I never imagined I'd be so saddened seeing Ian being left behind on the show, because as I mentioned with his cartoonish portrayal, I never even noticed when he wasn't around on one of these episodes. But still, on young Ian and number 9, Ian in the Gauntlet while Roger seeks his vengeance against Jamie. That was such a well done scene, like the alteration between the scenes, that was amazing. I would talk about what that means in my opinion, like Jamie, the more powerful one, the stronger one, is kind of giving in front of this person that's seeking vengeance upon him for making his life miserable. But in the meanwhile, this other guy that we thought was a wuss is actually fighting for his life, fighting to make sure that he puts his feet on solid ground and spends the rest of his life happily with these people. We also get to learn from this scene that Ian, even though seemingly this weak person, did manage over the years to learn a thing or two from his uncle. So he basically succeeds in the end to do what Roger failed at, getting through the gauntlet, proving himself worthy. Jamie, on the other hand, atoning for his mistakes by letting Roger beat the shit out of him. That was a really good scene, speaks to the character of Jamie as well. But moving on to number 10, one of those things that I do love about Claire is her facial expressions in situations like this one. It was pretty obvious that she's got a lot on her mind on that scene. She's angry at Roger for beating Jamie before her eyes, possibly unhappy Jamie allowed it, but she also feels for Roger, senses the pain that he had to go through, while possibly thinking as well of the possible array of reactions that he might have once he gets to find out about Brianna's pregnancy situation and the reasons behind it all. But number 11 though, a lot of fans were complaining about the terrible, hot-headed Brianna slapping Jamie a few episodes ago. There was definitely a hate fest going on, even though obviously we all know where she got that from. Jamie. Think about it for a moment here. I mean, I'm all for what Brianna did, considering the reasons I did mention on my review that week, and then the reasons that she mentioned an episode later, which are pretty much the same. But nonetheless, if we ignore those reasons and look at Jamie on this episode, the man who made Roger's life miserable, realized that he made Roger's life miserable, tried to atone for it by letting him beat the shit out of him, and then started threatening him again moments later. It's fatherly, it's amazing, but it also explains a lot. But moving on to number 13. In the books, and if I remember correctly, Claire and Jamie made it back to Brianna before she had her baby. Both of them were there for her through the labor, so a minor deviation really. I do think their presence would have been for the better, but still quite minor. But number 14. Roger hesitating, that's right out of the novel. Claire and Jamie making it back first, and without Roger, that's also by the novels. Now Brianna's reactions were just amazing. All of them. To the birth of her baby, holding him for the first time, receiving the news about Roger being alive but not making it back with her parents. All of those moments were really well acted by Sophie Skelton. For a moment there as well, with time running out on the finale, I thought we were gonna end on a cliffhanger when it comes to Roger, that he wouldn't make it back to Brianna the way he did in the novel, but he did in the end, even though his return in the novel was to Fraser's Ridge and not to River Run. Number 15, the letter ordering Jamie to build an army, that was right out of the novels. The bit about hunting down Murtaugh, that's definitely uncharted territory. Now the series has already carved a path for season 5, but it did end up as well leaving both the viewers and the readers of the novels alike wanting more. And that is exactly one of the many reasons that I keep stating why the series needs to deviate from the novels at times, to build up anticipation, and to make sure that everyone, no matter how many books they have read, ends up waiting for the season to follow. But finally though, number 16. This finale, in my opinion, was really good, a really good culmination to an entire season, but nonetheless it was missing some aspects, and these aspects are exactly what's gonna make me rate this finale with a 7 out of 10. Now one of these aspects happens to be that we got no news of Ian, because Ian by now should have sent news to the Frasers. He's supposed to have sent them informing them that he's doing fine with that tribe, and that he's been married and is awaiting his first baby. But the bigger missing piece though is a major reveal, one that Roger would present Jamie. So in the novels, we would come to find that Frank knew all along that Jamie survived battle, that he never died, and he never told Claire. Now I know that the series has so far deviated a lot on Frank, they painted him in a better light, and I do like that by the way, because painting him in this dark light, this extremely bad person, is just mostly to make us sympathize more with Claire, make her look better, and make Jamie look like the better man as well. And I kind of felt it was stupid about the novels. However though, and in the bigger scheme of things, it is stupid of the novel to make him into the devil, and it is stupid of the series to try and paint him in this beautiful, bright light all the time, like he does no mistakes. I mean, he has gotta make mistakes. That is exactly what would have made him more human. I mean, I wouldn't lose any sympathy for the guy, but I'd still love it if he wasn't always portrayed as the victim of Claire's love for Jamie. I mean, the guy's gotta have faults. Now there are more bits and pieces over here, like Lizzie for example, not reuniting with her father before the end of this season, but nonetheless in my opinion, these are the most important ones. So I say a 7 out of 10 is more than enough for this episode, because for the most of it, it did succeed at giving us the kind of emotional moments that we expected. It stuck in the majority to the novels, and where it did it in spirit, but it just skipped over a couple of moments that I think were important to the overall story. That being said though, my work here is done, so let me know what you thought of the finale of the season, if there are any book elements that you would have loved to see on it, and if you're looking forward to Season 5. Now, if you did like the content of this video, you can always drop it a like, subscribe, and enable notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. But until the next time you tune in for another one of my videos, Outlander or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, and have a great day.